Hello guys, I have another video for you today. Today we're going to talk about this Brad Southard Immortal Pup. Um, and recently I've been on this collecting attitude, or I guess like my goal is to collect the best knife from every maker. Or not every maker, but from the makers that I like, but I can only have one from each one. This is the Brad Southard that I chose, which might be surprising to some of you because this is not a Brad Southard design. Although it does have some of his like icons and features, the knife itself is designed by Tashi. He's the French designer and knife maker. And around 2013, this knife, or I guess there's like a challenge between different makers where you have to make this design, the Immortal Pup, but put your own flavor to it. You add your own flavor. And it was a competition against makers. And I feel like Brad really did a great job here in making his own design of the Immortal Pup. The reason why I think this might be the one that I want to keep from Brad is because out of the 5 knives I've owned from him, this was by far the best one. Because I've owned 2 mini AWTs, a Minotaur, the unnamed manual folder, which is a beautiful knife but had lots of flaws, and the what was the Eames. So all of those had a few issues one way or the other. Like the Eames detent suddenly became super weak. I couldn't, like, it didn't flip, and then if I shake hard enough, not even hard, the blade would just fly open. And then I sent it to Brad for him to fix, but it came back uncentered and also still weak. The D10 was a little bit stronger, but only for a few minutes, and then it became weak again. The mini Tolk is pretty good. I'll maybe do a review of it sometime, but it's of course not as dressy as this one, and there's less handwork on it, obviously. The let's see, the mini AWTs that I had, they were also, the first one that I got was pretty good, but I think the D10 sound was the only thing that I didn't like. It was very solid, but the sound itself was just, the sound signature was like a bit weird. I didn't really enjoy the sound of the closing as much. But besides that, that one was perfect. And my second mini AWT, I admittedly half dropped it. I was sitting down. It was in my pocket. I sat down on a hard surface. The top touched the floor, and it couldn't flip after that, which was weird. I sent it to Brad for spot treatment, and he said he's never seen anything like that. So, but all of them had something in common, which was the tolerance and everything. Even though the finish on it was nice, it wasn't perfect. Some flaws here and there. And then when I saw this come up, even though this is an older piece unlike all of my other ones, because you can see if the logo is still from the time he used handwork and not CNC. Currently he uses CNC, and he finishes the knife with by hand, which is very, like, I don't mind at all, but you can tell when the amount of time and work has been put into a knife. I can say easily that this work from 2013 is better than all of them, all of my other 5. And I wish Brad would continue to do the same thing, put the same amount of work, the same amount of love into his knives. You can really tell from the finished result, and I'll show you why. So first of all, it also makes sense that he puts on so much time and effort because it's not going into a lottery to a show. This is going into a competition against other makers for you to be voted who is the best design. He unfortunately didn't win, but the work put into this is considerable. The pivot is custom made by him. The stonewash frame is very nice to the feel and to the hand. You can see that it has a, I believe, Damascus ring with a zirconium inlay in the middle. It is seamless, the transition between the zirconium and the Damascus. You can't feel a thing. But between the Damascus and scale, you can feel it. There is, and you can see it as well, the gap. But I think that he probably meant to do it because looking at the work from the Zirc to the Damascus here, and it's flawless. It really is. And I love this color. I love the bright blue on the Damascus when it's done like this. And the orange. Again, very nicely done. And here he used a bright cut finish where he used diamond files to file it. Looks kind of like a very, very fine file work, and it feels good to the hand. I like that a lot. The back spacer, this is titanium, which has been anodized, and bright cut finish as well, and it has zirconium standoffs. Nice Damascus pocket clip. I love Brad's pocket clips. They're some of my favorites out of all the makers because it's so small and it works so well. You know, you don't need a big pocket clip to make it work well. This is the perfect example of a pocket clip. Perfect retention, doesn't slide out of the pocket. One hand, you can use one hand to slide it in. Small, discreet, classy. I like that. One of my favorite features on like all of my Brad Southers. Too bad the mini taupe doesn't have this. It has a bigger one, a stronger clip, but I think it has a purpose because that knife is so small and light. If it's not, I guess, if the tension's not tight, it'll just slip and disappear. I like how he does the lock bar cutout. Nicely done. To some people, I mean, this may be too plain as like one piece to keep from one maker. And I have to admit that I saw, it's not a Southard design, and I usually love his designs. But again, out of the 5 that I own, I'm a bit scared to buy another one just because there might be a few problems that come with it. But this one is just perfect, and I really like it. And there's a nice pivot right here, and he even provides you a pivot tool. I mean, his other knives now have standard hardware, but I mean, this is a fully custom hardware. And now to the blade, the action. The action is pretty good. The D10 is perfectly well balanced, and I have never had a knife with such a wide blade and this design, and I felt like I wanted to try it. I always like slim knives. Thinner knives, more useful. I mean, I feel like these ones are not as useful, but then this is pretty nice and surprisingly ergonomic and light. This fits very well in the hand. It has nice contouring. Even though it's very tall, it's also quite slim. So I tried to pocket this once or twice, and it worked well. Very, very well, in fact. I like it a lot. Great lockup. The action, I have to say, is really nice. Nice hand rub finish. Hand rub satin on both sides. Perfectly done. One thing I have to say that it's not Brad's fault, but it's a Tashi design, and this flipper tab, if you flip it a lot, it will dig into your finger and make it bruise. It's not sharp at all. This is perfectly done, and the D10 is perfect. If it's any harder, it'll hurt even more. If it's any softer, it'll be too weak. This just works all the time. It's more of a push button. See, if you light switch it, doesn't work. Doesn't work very well. But push button, and you're good to go. Because I met up with a few collectors, and sometimes they prefer light switching, and like you can, but you have to give it a little bit of encouragement, and it doesn't fly as well as like a push button, which I think this is designed for that. Don't need that much effort. One of the reasons why I say that, you know, Brad's knives are done better back then, maybe partly because the blade is so high and it has a very nice hollow ground. Out of all of my knives, or Southard knives, this is way sharper than the rest. Maybe in his newer ones he wanted the edge to be a little bit more, I guess, toothy, so it can cut things better that are like not paper. But this, as in paper slicing, this is far better than his newer ones. I don't know why he doesn't keep doing this, because I think that most people may prefer a very slicey edge like this one. Yeah, at first I thought he couldn't make a slicey edge, but when I got this one, okay, yep, he can do it. Again, showing maybe because the time taken or put into this knife is more than the rest, is because of this, you know, little details like that makes it better. And speaking of tolerances, I I mentioned before that this knife has a much better tolerance than the rest. Look at this. Look at the gap. There's basically no gap. Almost zero. And this is on bearings. I'm not sure if it's like ceramic bearings or not, but man, you can't even see through that. Look at that. Try to look through that, and I'll try to get the angle right, but the only knife that has had a better, or not even better, but the same tight tolerance is my unknown Rexford. And that thing really had a great, let's see if I can, there we go. You can just barely see the gap. For comparison, let me bring out my beloved Icoma. You can see that the gap is a tiny bit more noticeable. You can see it. You can see the gap, and in person you do. You really can tell that there is a difference. And now that it's out, you can have a little size comparison. Icoma is of course a bit longer. If you take it out of the view. But yeah, the gap here is insane. It really is. This is superb. And I can tell that on other Southards, this thing is a lot wider. I mean, I don't really mind that it's wide. If it's wide and it works well, then who cares? If there's no blade plate or movement, it's pretty good. But making something this tight is, you know, to me, highly impressive. Highly, highly impressive. And I've been playing with this knife so often. The D10 strength is still very strong. It's smooth. It's centered. You know, zero flaws. Unlike me other Southards, this thing has zero flaws. And I think this is why I love this knife, and I think it is one of the best examples from Brad Southard. And I wish he would continue to do such great work like this, put so much time on it. Such great contouring, so it's beautiful on the hand. It feels nice and thin because of the nice contouring. No sharp edges. Great lockup. Yep. Thank you so much, guys, for watching, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.